Welcome to the Marketing Genius Podcast, a show where we interview the most influential people in real estate to teach you how to generate leads, build a brand, and convert more customers. What is up, everybody? Grant Wise here. Welcome to the Marketing Genius Podcast. I am just elated today to be interviewing the one and only Mr. Eli Wilde, one of Tony Robbins' top all-time salespeople, an absolute legend in the sales process, and just an all-around great guy. I've gotten to connect with this guy, a couple of times privately, and this dude just has such a giving heart, a servant attitude, wants to help, wants to contribute, wants to make the world a better place. And today he has agreed to drop by and do that on the podcast. Eli, man, thank you so much for dropping by and spending some time with us.
Thanks, man. Thanks for that powerful introduction. Yeah, excited to be here, and let's get into it and help some people right now.
Let's dive right in, dude. Who is Eli Wilde? How did you get to where you are today?
I moved. I'm from the East Coast and moved to Colorado. I don't know if you know this, but I lived in a tent for about 8 months when I was 22. Just kind of finding myself, and ended up in California. Was an actor. Got cast to be one of the biggest movies of the year back in like 2003. Didn't get the part though, and it was to be Superman in Superman Returns back then. And so the guy got it, and I spent some time like acting, modeling, kind of bouncing around LA without a lot of purpose. And books like Think and Grow Rich and all these mindset books really helped. And I discovered something called NLP, neurolinguistic programming. And it's not like magic, it's not a gimmick, but it's like the nervous system, linguistics, language, and how that we become conditioned through words. And it really helped me a lot. And I was talking to this guy who was really into it. And he brought up one day, he says, "Well, you should check out Tony Robbins." And I was like, "Who's Tony Robbins?" And it was when I heard his voice, I got the book Unlimited Power. And there was all the principles of mindset, communication, persistence, like work harder, step up type of things. But he really got into the emotions and understanding the heart and why we do the things that we do, and like the human needs, for certainty, for safety, for connection. And I just found myself just reading that book over and over again, and I was so fascinated. And I went on eBay and I got his personal power system for $7.80. It was obviously used from like the 80s or something like that. And I just sat in my car listening to the tapes, because you can read the books and the guy's an amazing writer, but his voice captivates you, and he's changing his tonality. And there's so many speakers that are monotone, da, 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 and it's good. He had a style and this charisma and this intensity. It was like, it was not scripted. It was like from the heart and certain, and it just had so much energy there. Like, man, this guy's amazing. And then he would always seed, which is something we'll talk about. He would seed his, "Maybe I'll see you someday at our Unleash the Power Within events where we walk on fire." I was like, "What the frick is that?" And got really interested, and I saw him speak at one of those Learning Annex events. It was like a real estate expo. Donald Trump, Robert Kiyosaki, Susie Orman, everybody's selling their no money down real estate kind of BS course and get rich quick in stocks or something. And it was kind of cheesy, these speakers on stage just there to present something. But then Tony came out, and he was supposed to speak for 2 hours, but he spoke for about two and like 4.5. And at the end of it, he's like, "If you got anything from these 4 effing hours, spend 4 effing days with me. I'll change your effing life. We'll give you your effing money back." And he was just so certain. And I used my rent money to sign up for his program, Unleash the Power Within. And I was just all in. And I was so touch moved and inspired from that experience. I really got just fully into this whole mindset, communication, NLP thing. And I basically harassed the company. I called them about 200 times in a period of about 2 weeks. And I drove down to San Diego unannounced. And I was pretty much with the mindset, they're going to, like, I'll take out the trash for this company. I'm going to work here. And they're either going to give me a job or put me in jail. Cause he talked about persistence and not giving up and all these things. And I was like, I'm in. And they were pretty much right away, "Yeah, you need to be in sales." So I worked my way up pretty quick, and a lot of magic happened. And we've developed a really great friendship now. And people always ask me, "How am I such good friends with Tony?" We text each other all the time. It's like I've probably made him over $100 million. That tends to help a friendship, you know. And so I don't know how that's duplicatable, but for me, it was. I think also he saw a lot of himself in me, because I was just so hungry, so committed, so determined, and also with the heart to serve. And for me, people ask me a lot of times, like, how did I become? And we'll talk about this as we get into the interview. But typically my job is I would sell his events, and there was many of us out there that were speakers. We'd go to real estate companies, mortgage companies, sales-based organizations, and we'd sell people into his program. And it was about $1,000 course, and then there's like a 10,000 and on up. That's our funnel, as we'll talk a little bit about that today in strategy. But um, as I went out there with these other salespeople selling the same program, we had the same program, the same price point, the same offer, the same event, and we actually had the same script using the same words to sell the same type of people. But by the time I left, and I go back and forth now, my sales are typically 2 to 5 times higher than every other person using the same words. Um, and it's a lot of it was mindset, and and I'm sure that you listening or watching this and notice that there's things that you do where you have this trial and error, and then you figure some things out. You invest in yourself, you invest in a program, you read a book, and you get an insight, or you get a mentor that gives you that feedback. And I spent all my money on coaches and mentors because I just didn't want to have money. I wanted to get so good they can't ignore you. And my goal wasn't just to sell tickets or to be number one. It was like, I'm going to change the world by exposing people to this man. And I got to have this feeling that was like a gift, that I went through this program and I learned all these distinctions about myself that helped me learn how to reconnect better with myself, with my mom, and my dad. Just, we talk about the quality of our lives comes from the quality of our communication, not only with our prospects or our family, but also the communication with ourselves. And so I just want to give people the gift, and I want to make their life better. And so I sold people not on me trying to get a paycheck or money, but using myself as a vehicle to take somebody, and my script and my language and my persistence. It was all a vehicle to move somebody from where they were to a better place in their life. And so there was an authenticity there that really helped me, but also just a massive commitment. And so that's a little bit of my story. I've got so much to it, and we don't have a ton of time, but I want to make sure that as we're on this call, I'm adding value to the listeners. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell. This whole sales journey, and now of course I got my own stuff, and looks like Tony and I are going to create a program together next year, because most, Grant and I were just talking. Most the top sales programs out there, or sales trainers, I should say, their stuff is like from the '80s, especially in real estate. And Mike Ferry, it's all really good stuff,
Mhm.
but they're preaching a pre-internet philosophy,
Mhm.
and things have changed a little bit. So it's been really cool to connect with entrepreneurs like yourself that are differently, as there's an old way and now there's a new way. And people that don't adapt or just do the old things, it's just they're not going to survive. So it's been really great to see the shift.
Love it, man. And now you even have an award named after yourself at Tony's company, right?
Yeah, yeah. Long story short, when I was an actor, then I got working for Tony in 2008. I left Tony's company and I got back into acting. There was like a billboard of me in Times Square. I'm on some shows. And side story, this dance show that put a billboard of me all over LA, all over New York, and it kind of promoted me. They spent millions marketing my face. I was on the Today Show, so it was very competitive. But I auditioned about against 800 professional dancers, models, actors, and I had no experience. But I remember it went from 800 to 100 down to 30 down to 8 for this final process to see who would be this dance star. And I have no experience. But I remember there was like a dance portion, and I was the worst dancer. You got to be in good shape, and I was in good shape. Uh, but then there was an interview, and I listened to the other people go in ahead of me, a couple of them, and based on their being questioned and how they responded and their lack of clarity in their communication and all about themselves, or like this would be a good opportunity for me and why they wanted to do it. I remember sitting outside there, and I was like, I freaking got this. Like, I'm gonna win. And so I did the acting thing. They promoted me, and I used that picture. And this is good for your people to hear, because they put a billboard of me in Times Square all around, and a lot of people saw that picture. And so I took a picture of that billboard. It was a thing called Hunky Santa. Somebody goes to me. My original last name was Eli Wilde. So we changed it. Just we have this Wilde Influence brand. So I changed my last name. So my real name is Eli Wilde, but with Eli Wilde now. And so if you Google it, it's Eli Wilde Santa. This picture will come up. And I took that picture and I sent over 1,000 postcards to different casting directors, managers, agents all over LA. And it was like a postcard with a little blurb coming out of my mouth, like saying "Merry Christmas." By the way, this is me, and I introduced myself, and I ended up creating relationships, and I got myself on TV shows, and I got huge auditions. So I didn't book some of the bigger ones, but I got in the door and it made an impact. Um, I used that as a marketing piece, and fast forward about a year, I had pushed myself so hard because it's interesting when you're in the sales game. Ideally, hopefully you guys are making some money. I was making pretty decent money. And then when I was in the acting game, I was truly a starving artist, but I was still living a lifestyle like I was making a lot of money. So I
Mm,
went through all my money and I was working out like 3 hours a day. I was in great shape, but I was acting, doing some side business thing, just really spread myself thin. It's like some nights I just didn't sleep and I burnt out my adrenal glands. My immune system got so low, I ended up getting a parasite. And long story short, I beat myself up so bad, they gave me less than a year to live. I was in the
mm,
hospital, all these things. And Tony's brother-in-law, Scott Humphrey, we became very, very close. And he called me one day saying, "What's up with you?" And I told him, I was like, "Things are terrible. Here's what's up." And flew me out to Date with Destiny, reconnected with Tony and his wife, Bonnie. And they calls her Sage, but her real name is Bonnie Pearl. And yeah, he just had this really powerful talk with me. And then we did this training together where he was training and I was just in the audience. And we had this interaction. He asked me to come back to work for the company. And so in 2010, I came back to work for him, but I was still sick. And I had basically, I needed that was in December, Date with Destiny. I spent about 3 months in bed. And then I came back to work for him in March. Um, and I worked half the week and I laid in bed or a hospital bed the other half the week. He announced the contest where whoever's the top person in each division got to go to Fiji to his resort. But if you're the top person and you break all these like bajillion records, you not only go to Fiji, but you stay in his old house, you hang out with him. It was basically like a dream come true. And I was like, again, like I'm gonna freaking win no matter what. So that year I didn't work the first 2 months of the year and I only worked half weeks because of my condition. And despite that, I worked about 60% less than everybody in the organization, was still the number one person, still broke all the records. And so we created an award based on my performance. And now whoever's the top person in the organization gets that award. And took me to Fiji, obviously, and we hung out. And I got to ask him like every stupid question that I've ever wanted to ask him, because he's this guy's coached now 5 American presidents and, he's hung out with like, Mother Teresa and Nelson Mandela. He's just such an icon with such a heart. And these stories about, one-on-one conversations with, Michael Jackson, Mike Tyson, Bill Clinton, things that he doesn't always talk about and ask him about specific moments. And he'd have to think and just give me these just sage wisdom and relate it
mm.
back to me in my life and how I was showing up and the reason that I asked and what I'm looking for, and just a fascinating human being. So it
That's
was like a
incredible.
dream come true for me.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's incredible. So that's a good story, man.
thanks.
I love it, dude. I love it. So you have such a fascinating story, going back to when you got started, how you got started. I didn't know that that's how you got started with Tony's organization. That's funny, through production and through awards and into where you are now. Um, you said something in your story there. You said that you sometimes that your conversion rate is usually 2 to 5 times higher than most people's using the same words. What did you mean by that? How are you able to convert so much better than anybody else, even though you may be saying some of the same things, if I'm understanding you the right way?
Yeah. And so the interesting thing is this, and we've heard, and I don't believe in like hounding somebody, but when you've got a clear outcome, so one of the things that we teach is a clear outcome, and leaders always have an outcome. They have a direction in their life for their family, their health, their business. They have this vision and a vision that's bigger than themselves. So what it takes to be successful is hunger, a vision, and then strategies. And so strategies that I can teach, but somebody to have a vision, and we teach, the way I teach it is this concept that life supports that which supports life. Here's what that means. I work in self-development. People say, how do I develop myself, support myself, take care of myself, respect myself, have self-confidence? It's all about the self. But if you're in a communication with a client or anybody, and you are truly only there for yourself, does the other person feel it? Yeah. And so a vision bigger than yourself and life that supports that which supports life means some of you listening to this don't just show up for yourself every day, because I don't care who you are in this sales game. You have days you do not feel like picking up the phone or knocking on the door or doing the thing. But if you have kids, you don't just show up for work for yourself, you show up for your family. And when you show up for your family, it's like more of you shows up. But when you show up for your community, or you show up for humanity, like Nelson Mandela or Martin Luther King, they aren't just showing up for themselves and their own needs. They show up for them for a vision that's bigger than themselves, and they feel called. And so I really felt this certainty in the moment, and I knew that when people said no or I got to think about it, if I really felt like this would serve them, I became more resourceful in the moment with my language and how I said the words that drew people to me. And now I teach it like this, and I say this, and hopefully you guys will see my hands, or I'll explain it well if you're listening. If there's like the moon here and the earth is here, if the earth got bigger, the moon would get closer because of the gravitational pull. But if the earth shrunk, the moon would actually get further away. Does that make sense? So it's physics, it's gravity,
Yeah.
it's like laws of the universe. And so what happens, my certainty is so much bigger than the person's challenge. And when they have, I got to think about it, they have fear. Most people, salespeople, when they hear something like, I got to think about it, their focus goes to, I just wasted time. They get, or maybe they tense, they get frustrated, and they have the right rebuttal, objection handler. But now they say it with tension or fear or anger or stress in their voice. And so the next response from the prospect isn't a response to the word. They're responding to the energy,
Mm.
to the emotion, the energy in motion. And Einstein says everything's energy. And so if we can absorb somebody's stress, absorb somebody's frustration and fear without contracting, and if we can expand into it, in the coaching world, it's called holding space.
Hmm.
And it's like, come here, I got this. I'm here to work with you. And you ask somebody a powerful question. And it's not about having this objection handler or rebuttal to overcome, because people don't want to be overcome. They don't want to be handled. They want to be understood and appreciated. And when they have, it's not an objection, but it's a concern, to hold space, to embrace and help them resolve their concern and realign them with what they really want. And so it's not just the words, it's a way of being that makes somebody feel safe. And when you expand in your certainty and you become bigger, when there's all the chaos there, they pull even closer to you. It's physics. And so if you can be that certain in times of uncertainty, and that's leadership. I always say sales is leadership. And so, like, when everybody's freaking out about the economy, which is going to happen, when everybody freaks out about the market and this and that, leaders, they bring a state of certainty in times of uncertainty. It's like, it's like, I got this. I'll take care of this. And to be that for your wife, or to be that for your kids, or to be that for your clients, to be this in this state, this empowered level of being that makes them feel at ease. And so before I talk to a client, I know they got kids and they got stress in their life and they got family and mom and dad. Like, life is pretty freaking complex. And the last thing they need is somebody hard closing them, pushing them into something for their own reasons. But if we can get people realigned, and I love the analogy of like going to the gym. It's like, there's a little bit of stress. It's like, how do we build muscle with little teeny green and pink and silver weights, or with the big heavy ugly ones? And to help people see that, this process of investing in yourself or in a home, it it's challenging, but that's how we grow. And making strong decisions, that's how we grow, and getting people aligned, that's what they're actually wanting in their life.
How do you feel like you gain more certainty? Let's say, I'm a realtor, and maybe I'm going to work with more prospective buyers and sellers. When you say certainty, is it certainty of self, of situation, of circumstance? Is it certainty of, I'm certain I'm going to close this person? Like, when you're talking about certainty and clarity and power, what do you mean from that perspective?
Well, so one, it's all of that. And there's a very big distinction that we teach. It's between studying and training. And so say somebody gets like 10 books on real estate, investing, whatever, sales, and now they've got 10 different ideas, 10 different strategies in their mind. And so they've actually created an internal state of uncertainty.
Mm.
And so sales, business communication, it's a transference of emotion. I can't give you a dollar unless I have a dollar. I can't give you certainty or confidence unless I have it within myself. So there's a transference of a state. So we teach there's level one influence, yourself, and level two is how do you transfer that to another person? And so difference between studying and training, studying is 20 different things, or, as Bruce Lee said, I don't fear the man that does 10,000 different kicks, but one kick 10,000 times. So to train, you do something over and over again, over and over again. And so you think about in your morning formula that we teach, we have a mental process that conditions somebody's mind, but it's not just in your mind, because if you're in your head, you're dead thinking about what you're going to say, but it's a state. So you've got to take it in from your head to your heart or your body. So there's a physiology to certainty. There's,
Mm.
your shoulders back, but it's not just all pumped up and rah-rah. There's a relax, there's a sense of resolve, like, of course. And so you got to condition your nervous system. You got to condition that state. Studying's all over the place, but training means you do something over and over again, over and over again, over and over again. And whether it's your script, conditioning your mouth, conditioning yourself to take on stress at the gym, you take on stress and it builds muscle. But what we're talking about is conditioning emotional muscles that make us more certain in times of uncertainty, so we can actually be strong for our clients and move them out of their uncertainty and fear and stress and distraction to a place of calm and safety that's going to ultimately move them forward. But every action somebody takes or doesn't take is always preceded by a thought and a feeling. And so there's a feeling I want to transfer, and there's thoughts I want them to have. And so through language patterns and some of our scripting process, I'll say things like, well, here's something you might not have considered, or I invite you to consider the possibility that, or here's what you might want to think about, or have you thought about this? So, or ask them a question. And right now, I ask you a question about your mom, or the best day of your life, or your dad, or whatever, and what you ate yesterday. And as I ask you questions, I take your mind there. So we have a syntax through our sales process, and even how we engage people in Messenger, anything that directs people with questions. We direct their focus in many different ways. And whatever we focus on, we tend to feel. Again, if I ask you about the best day of your life or the worst day of your life, 20 questions about each, and we sat for an hour focusing on the worst or the best, you're going to produce a different emotional state. And so there's this transference emotion. So in order for me to give that, my own focus needs to be empowering.
Mm.
And so we direct our own focus with questions. And if you go prospecting, if you're on the phone and you're thinking questions like, why do I got to do this? Am I wasting my time? Um, two people, I could give, say, two salespeople a list of 100 prospects, and they were going to follow up on some leads. And one person could have a belief system of feeling. And by the way, a belief is a feeling of absolute certainty, like you know it. And so somebody might believe, like, hey, these 100 people, I'm going to call them. It's like digging for gold. I'm going to find a sale, a lead, like something's going to happen today. It's going to be amazing. They don't quite know, so they're uncertain, but they are certain that it's going to happen. And in every call, you can hear it. I can listen to their call and I can hear, like, it's going to happen on this call. It's going to happen. And that positive expectancy. Or if I listen to somebody else on a sales call and they're followed with 100 leads and we listen, they're still making the calls and they're reading the script, they're reading the words, but their dialogue is like, is it going to be worth it?
Hmm.
What if I call all these people and it doesn't work out? Am I just wasting my time? Nobody wants to talk to me. I feel like a nuisance. So
Mm.
they've got a different dialogue. And if you listen to the two, is very different.
Right.
And so the person that picks the phone will respond to the energy in the state. Could be the same words, but it's the energy in the state.
Mm.
And there's something called confirmation bias, where it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. People that believe, like, am I wasting my time? They focus on it. And based on their language and the way that it lands energetically, somebody blows them off. And they're like, yep, see, I told you.
Yep.
And it reinforces a pattern. And so we have a belief that affects our potential, that affects our
Mhm.
level of action, which affects our results. And that's the success cycle. Or if somebody believes, hey, this is going to happen, and they really believe it's going to happen, that affects their potential in the moment. They expand their potential, which shifts the quality of the action and the amount of action because they know that it's going to happen. And as Jim Rohn said, how long? Until.
Mhm.
And so there's a different level of action because they're certain, and that affects the results. And that result reinforces the fact that good things always happen to me. That reinforces the fact or the belief that people want to talk to me, that there's deals out there, that there's money out there. And that enhanced belief becomes conditioned, like we talk about condition, which creates certainty, a feeling of absolute certainty. It strengthens the belief, which affects the potential, the action, the result. And
Mhm.
it's a positive success cycle, but most people are caught in a downward spiral, a
Right.
limited belief about themselves, about the market, about time, about people, about money. So you ask, like, what is it? It's all those things. It's a process, and most people get caught. there's some limited belief in their psychology about, usually it's their vehicle, their self view, or their worldview. And we go into that, but there's some limiting factor in their psychology, emotionally, and it could be true that they have negative circumstances. But I always remind people run races without legs.
Mm,
Like human beings are freaking amazing. And the only thing, like, I'm like, I get it. People have challenges and people have problems in their life. But, as a coaches, we can't buy into the limitation. And sometimes our clients, even if we're selling them a home, they're distracted, they have fear. It's not going to be just what we say, it's our state and our belief in them. And we persist because we have faith in the possibility. And so that affects our potential, our action, our results, and becomes a success cycle, but it's conditioning. And most
mm,
people are wired for mediocrity. They're wired for laziness, inadequacy. They're wired for excuses. And, we say that it's like stimulus response. Like we're all like, we're animals, like, like the Pavlov's dog example, ring a
mhm.
bell, salivate. Most people hear, I got to think about it, call me back later. And there's a conditioned, unresourceful response and how they're communicating with themselves in their mind, in their nervous system. They shrink, they get fear, their hormones go crazy instead of expanding into it and saying, how this isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. And I'm now being challenged to become even stronger. Thank you. They feel grateful, just like having a good workout. And that mindset, it's like I remember after a while when I first started working for Tony doing these sales presentations, and I lived with Tony's son for a bit, Jarek, which was awesome. Hearing coaching from actual Tony freaking Robbins on how he coached his son. Because I remember when I first heard Tony in CDs, and he's got this one daily magic CD where he talks about his son and his kids and all these things. I remember thinking to myself, what would it be like? And I love my father, so this isn't a stab at my dad, but I was thinking, like, what would it be like to have Tony Robbins be my freaking dad? How cool would that be? And then I remember, living with Jarek, and I remember thinking to myself, man, I'm really happy Tony Robbins is not my freaking dad. Not that he's a bad dad at all, but it's
Right.
just that shadow,
Oh,
those,
for sure.
those are pretty big shoes to fill, a lot of pressure. And I remember just hearing this dialogue and from his father and getting this great coaching. And I would take down crazy notes, all this insight. But I remember we initially, it was very different back then where our presentations in these like real estate offices mostly, we would go to companies and do our pitch, our presentation. And because I was in an area, they would have these secretaries, these appointment setters, and they'd say, hey, we got two great speakers in your area. One is this guy, Eli. He's amazing. Or we got Tony Robbins' son. Who do you want? They're like, give us Tony's freaking son. And so Derek got all the great meetings, and I had car lots. It's supposed to be 20 people there. 4 people show up, one smoking a cigarette, the other's texting. Nobody knows who Tony is. They've never read a book in their life. There's a car lot, or there's a bank where they work on the weekend. It's the worst situation in the world. And I remember I could feel myself just getting like so frustrated. But that, is such a gift now because I was committed to an outcome to be the best that I could. And I knew I didn't take it personally, like this isn't fair. I knew that was preparing me where I had to work twice as hard so I could get the skill set where I needed to move a company in the moment. And I wanted to be put in the worst situations. And I built more muscle than everybody else on the team because the way I presented in my mental model that this is happening to me, not, happening for me, not to me. I wasn't a victim to my circumstances. So I became responsible, even when it wasn't my fault. And another way to say responsible is response able. I empowered myself. I responded powerfully and positively despite my circumstances. And so when I went into those presentations and I talked, initially I get heckled and, whatever. And then eventually I could destroy these people. But then I thought to myself, like, is that what I really want to do, is just destroy people and make them feel bad? Like, maybe you have a conversation with your mom and she says something crazy. It's like, do I want to make her feel bad? Is my outcome to make her feel bad, or is my outcome to make her feel empowered, but also open the possibility of some other form of communication that resolves this for both of us? And so I learned through my maturity to not destroy people linguistically, because I would be up all night and think of like how, like, if somebody ever says that to me again, I am going to like rip open the moment and destroy somebody, and I'd be right. And this, I remember T. Harv Eker says, you can be right or you can be rich. Can't be both.
Yeah.
And being righteous, it's not about what's right and wrong. It's about what works and what doesn't work. And I'm like, yeah, I can destroy people, but that doesn't work for either one of us. And so how do I change that and create what works in this moment by changing my communication? So I became very resourceful. And then after a while, though, I knew I could handle it, but from a place of love and service. And I had the big brass balls certainty along with it, though. And when I was challenging people, I was challenging not to be right, but challenging to serve them, challenge their mindset, or challenge, why would you even say that to me? Why would that come up after you say you want this? And I'm really here to serve you. And so after a while, I almost wanted the objections and I wanted the people to challenge me. And it rarely ever happened. It's like a pit bull, it's like looking for a fight. Like I'm ready. Like I'm gonna pounce on it, but I'm gonna love you. But people were kind of like their nervous system, they knew that they couldn't pick on me. It's like somebody has a mindset like people always pick on me, and those are the ones that get picked on. But people are like, people are awesome. They don't get that. And so I believe that my energy created circumstances, my mindset created circumstances. And then I remember after a few years, I was doing this presentation, and this woman did interrupt me in the present of my talk. And it was, it was like she was kind of insane. But I looked at her and I was like, "Thank you." I said, "Can I say something to you?" I've done this talk like 1,000 times at that point. I do these presentations like 2 times a day, all over the place. People just listen. Like, you really interrupted my pattern and you got me really present right now. And I realized how much of my life I'm kind of on autopilot saying my script and connecting. And I was like, thank you. And to answer your question, but I was like, it's really cool that you brought that up. I've not thought of that. And I just remember thinking I was like presently, like, so grateful that where I would have taken it personally years before. And she said this thing to me, and I don't think she signed up for the event, but I just remember just being like, "Thank you,"
Mm.
and it was real. And that when you're speaking to an audience, like if you shrink, there's a guy in the coaching space down here in San Diego that does very similar thing that I do, makes a lot of money. And I saw him. I was very impressed with him. So I saw him a year and a half ago, and he made an offer to this from the stage, and I saw him just shrink.
Mm.
And my respect went for him because he talks all this mindset stuff. But I saw him get red. I saw him get nervous. I saw him kind of pushing hard close people. Saw him be reactive. It's like, oof, wow. Maybe you're a better marketer.
Mm.
Maybe you're better at marketing what you do than what you actually do, which is a lot of people in the industry now. So yeah, it's like I think there's a mindset, and it's like Jim Rohn said, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. And if you really want to be better, you want to be challenged. And
I wish you could say it in that Jim Rohn voice because he's he's got
yeah,
that like long,
yeah.
long kind of drawn out. Don't wish it was whatever you just said.
Don't, he's the
Yeah,
wish that you were better,
yeah,
wish that you were better, kind of thing. He's got a personal style.
he does. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a very unique. It was very unique to him. So
yeah,
Eli, I hear you. I hear everything you're saying, and you've got me like hanging out on a cliff here because I got this question, and I know people need to answer this question. What
yeah, yeah.
types of rituals and standards do I need to develop inside of myself to create the level of certainty and clarity and power that you're describing?
Yeah. Well, there's the interesting thing. And so I'm staying with some friends right now in San Diego, and we are just joking last night. So some people that get up, they got to have their bulletproof coffee, do their Wim Hof breathing, do their meditation for an hour, go to the gym for an hour, journal for an hour, read a book in the morning. It's like they got like all these things, these parts of their routine. And the purpose of these processes is to create an internal state. It could be love, compassion, empathy, certainty, focus, drive. And so I'll share with you mine in a moment. But being on the road for the past better part of 14 years traveling, living out of a suitcase now, just hotels for the past 5 months and some friends' places. Um, yes, you need to be able to book in your day. You need to set an intention, go through your day, review it, and then plan your next day. Maybe like two, three, four, five things that are like bullet points. Like I've got some content I'm creating today, and I know why I'm doing it, so I'm emotionally charged. It's connected to my purpose for my life that I have clearly written that I look at every single morning. Hint: you need to have that to anchor it in to know
Mhm.
why you're doing what you're doing, because it's like all these things that I'm saying. It's not like these are just coming out of me one time. Like I say these things to myself every day, studying versus training. So whether it's your mission, your purpose, your values, it's like, and I love that from what Tony said in that really cool movie, I'm Not Your Guru, the documentary.
Yeah.
My favorite line was it when he was talking about himself and how he got to where he is. He says, I created this Tony Robbins motherfucker.
Mhm.
It's like we
Yep.
get to make choices in who we want to be. And so that doesn't happen by chance, it happens by choice, but daily choices that are often difficult. And that's all conditioning of our values and our personality and all that. So for me personally, but one thing is this, what I'm wanting to allude to is this: you can't make yourself so state dependent on external things, whether you do the meditation, all these things, or people or processes, a state, it's a sense that you can click into to be anchored, where it's like time to go. It's like, boom, I'm into it. And, sometimes you get to take like an hour workout, you got time. Sometimes you only got 15 minutes. It's daily conditioning. So it changes based on my schedule. And sometimes I'm on stage. I literally have not slept. I don't recommend that, but I've literally, been like in Oslo or, some country, and I fly in, and, I'm being in front of like 100 people in a company, and they're paying me, and I got to perform. And so, you need to be able to click into it and take as much downtime. But for me personally, I want to remind myself, kind of process like a daily formula, morning formula, where I just get clear on what I want, who I am, my values, my goals. Look at it every day. I read some things out loud, some kind of like affirmations to myself. Just really just taking all the information in my head, making sure that it's in my body. Thinking about my purpose, and if I can be outside in nature, that's all the better. But yeah, something to get me fired up, but also something to relax me a little
Mm,
bit. And, I don't eat breakfast. I'll have like a coffee in the morning, trying to drink less of that. But yeah, I just get reassociated to why I'm doing what I'm doing. And, there's this really cool book called Man's Search for Meaning. It's like sometimes we're all going to have that time where you're working, maybe you've got enough money in the bank, and you're just like, why am I even doing this? And you're tired. And I know then also that's for me, it's like I'm a bit burnt out. For me, it's been 5 months, and I'm a little bit burnt out. But being here the last day and a half in San Diego, I showed you this, but that's
mm,
the ocean right over there that I'm looking at right now. Meaning, like sometimes, and I know that I think it's strategic coach has these like focus weeks, and then you kind of have planning weeks, and you have like kind of like down weeks. So everybody's got a rhythm.
mhm.
And for some of you, so I can say you can be a consistent routine all the time, but sometimes shit hits the fan and you miss some stuff. You can't let that affect your mindset, because some people have a bad situation or somebody cuts them off, and that affects their physiology. They're tense, they're focused, they're angry. And then they go to work and they have a bad day, they lose an appointment, they lose a listing, and then they go home, they get in a fight with their spouse, and then they eat some ice cream and shitty food and some alcohol, and they can't sleep, and they get bad sleep, and they wake up the next morning, and then it's like a bad day turns into a month and then a decade, and
Yep.
it's like, where did the time go? And so whether it's going to a seminar, getting a coach, or just your daily routine, or a week, like maybe Sunday evening, you need to have like a mental reset.
Mhm.
Could be a couple hours. And I've been going hard for a long time. So the short answer is daily routine's awesome, but if I miss it, I don't let that throw me off.
Right.
And so I've got to have these center of gravity points.
One decision I've learned that in myself, that one thing can't lead to another. For the last 2 3 weeks, my routine has been insanely dialed. Right. Last
Hmm.
night we had storms here in Arkansas, so my son woke up at 11:30, and
Oh,
I popped into the bedroom, laid down with him for a little bit. I fell asleep. Actually, woke up. It was 12:30, and he had decided to get up and go prancing around the house while I was passed out. So then it
yeah.
was got to chase him, get back into bed. Anyway, I didn't get much sleep last night. Woke up at 4:40 when my alarm went off, because that's normally when I would head to the gym. But
Yeah.
I was like, I am literally exhausted. Like I could fall over right now and die. Like I am just dead, like gone.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
made the decision to, boop, I'm gonna hit the snooze. I gotta get some sleep because I have a big day. I'm interviewing you, I've interviewed some other people, I've got some content, I got a lot of stuff I have to do. Sleep to me is more important than going to the gym. I made a decision. But one thing that I've noticed in my past is that sometimes that forgiveness in that moment, the lack of discipline, whatever you would like to call it, like you just said, it leads to the next failed decision in a day, which
Yeah.
might be subtle sabotage, like eating something I wasn't supposed to, or you looking at something over here, or writing this down the wrong thing, or like just anything. One decision after another, right?
Mhm.
And I caught myself today, fortunately, with my Tony Robbins coach. I've been getting some help too, with
Nice.
not letting one decision lead to the next bad one, basically just resetting right then in the moment. And I believe Tony has, his own 90-second rule, right?
Yeah.
He's got his own, hey, we're gonna stop this, we're gonna stop it right now. Because you're right, a day or a minute can turn into an hour, can turn into a day, can turn into a week, can turn into a month, and can turn into a decade if some people aren't careful. You can lose a lot of life, that way.
Yeah.
1,000%.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah,
You
how old are you, man? Let me ask you.
I'm 29.
Dude, oh, good, man. You're so successful, so young. Look at you,
Well,
man.
yeah.
How old's your kid?
So Lorelai, my daughter, is 7, and Maverick is
Wow.
2. He's about to be a my wife calls him he's about to be a three-nager, whatever that is. Basically, because he's like a
Okay.
little Tasmanian devil, so
Yeah.
he's got some stuff going. But yeah, I'm on the younger side right now, thankfully.
Good for you, man.
Learn it all.
Yeah. Rocking it.
Do you believe that everything that you just kind of laid out is really a great mindset, great plan, great system structure for creating certainty in uncertain times? I mean, if you look around in the real estate industry right now, there's a lot of fear driven stuff taking place. You've got Amazon entering the space, you have Zillow, uh, which for a long time was a massive lead generator for agents, is kind of their model has evolved over the last couple of years, and agents are fearful of what's happening there. You've got a lot of technology disruption. There's a lot of stuff going on in the real estate industry. What some believe is uncertain times, but in uncertain times, there are people that do very well, and there are people that don't do very well at all. You know, in the previous recession, there were still people that dominated, right? There were still people that went out there
Yeah.
and made the best of it. Do you believe that kind of what you just went through is how you create certainty in uncertain times, or do you feel like there's more to it?
It's so many different levels to it. But even these big companies that are marketing, I mean, they're putting out this presence and it's marketing and all that. And what creates this connection with a person where they know, like, and trust you, or they build this trust with your brand. It's repetition of an impression, branding, being branded on our mind. And so they're going to happen 1,000 times with these big companies, or it's like one time very deep with another human being. And so, I mean, the history of the world is the history of human emotion. People get married, this cause wars, all that. And so if you can really learn how to channel this within yourself, I mean, like I said, people run races without legs. There's been one person against many that has shifted the world. Looking at Martin Luther King and these people. So you have to, whatever it is, you have to start with the belief that it's possible, even if it's the worst situation. But with that said, getting more resourceful, looking at different avenues, not doing the same thing you did 20 years ago. And if you are going to quote unquote compete or leverage what they're doing to serve you, there's a way to take what they're doing and actually say, yeah, they're doing this, and that's why we're doing this. So it's just a way of connecting with enough people through your own marketing and taking it online. There's things that you can learn from these big organizations, but I don't think the right thing to do is to be fearful of it. um, but it's just to use it to your advantage. And there's always a way. Sometimes it's easier to see than others. Sometimes it's challenging to see, but the game is definitely going to change in marketing and sales. And I think, like we were talking about the stats on texting or Facebook Messenger, as opposed to cold calling somebody. What is it like? 90% of phone calls don't get answered, and 93% of texts do get read, or 98, something like that. So just the way that we communicate has to be different. And again, quality of our life is the quality of our communication with others, but also with ourselves. And so we see that we try something, doesn't work. We don't freak out in our communication with ourselves. We tap back into our certainty and our purpose and our vision, and that pulls people into us. And so, yeah, it's a really unique time for us to be able to create these connections with automated services. And so I think we can learn from some of these big companies and how they're doing it, and model some of it very inexpensively for ourselves, so that we can create our own little empire.
Talking about change, how has sales been redefined for you in an internet world? Like we were talking about scripts, and we were talking about sales trainers, and we were talking about how a lot of the stuff is it's good stuff. It's just a little bit outdated information. How do you feel like the sales game has evolved in the internet age?
For one thing, and I love what Gary Vaynerchuk said like 10 years ago. He says, there was all this push from like the Ace Hardware, the small mom and pop shop in a city, in a town, is shut down because people, they started a Walmart. But the millennials, they don't trust these big brands like the Amazon. Some of them don't. Coca-Cola, they actually aren't buying from them. And millennials are kind of the wave. Like your generation is shifting things and how we buy. And so, yeah, there's these big companies, but they become too big, they actually lose trust. And so that's always going to be there. But to answer your question specifically, I think that you, through automated messenger or texting, you need to just be really good at that. um, because it's not about making 100 phone calls a day or door knocking. And some of the Mike Ferry scripts, one of my clients was using all these, and I looked at him, I was like, you could do this and ask it this way instead. and try it. And 100% of the time, it's better. And so I think just some of those things that, they say if it don't, it's not broke, don't fix it, but it's not really working anymore. And yeah, you can take twice as much action and make 200 phone calls a day and get a auto dialer and all that stuff, but those numbers are going down. I was just in Colombia and I met some young men that are doing well in DC area, and they were there for like a bachelor party, and we were just, we were having a beer out, and but they were very young, successful guys, and so I said, well, let's role play it, let's do this, and they were just kind of like mind blown, and everybody kind of quit drinking. It was just surrounded around me for a bit, and I said, you should record this, and they did, and yeah, I think it's just changed the way that we value human relationships and connection. This is what Gary Vaynerchuk alluded to. People aren't going to trust those big brands. It's going to go back to the mom and pop shops. Um, even for me, it's like people reach out to me daily now. It's like more than I can handle. And people, because I've done zero marketing, I've never done any marketing, and we have such a response off word of mouth. And I think that's going to really work for your agents too. Starting there, they need to do the initial marketing and do the push, but it's changing their communication like they're talking to a friend, because people want to feel that. And so you can use both. You can leverage these enhanced marketing systems to create authentic connections that no big company can.
So kind of like automated personalization, right? I mean, we talk a lot about community over commission. You got to think about your
Yeah.
prospect first. You got to think about your community first. You got to think about, just coming out of that servant heart, servant attitude. But there are so many advancements in technology that it make it easier to go one to many,
Yeah.
uh, in a number of different ways. And we like to think about automated personalization. Like, how can you still automate some things, but do it in such a personal way that you really go out there and get some results. How do you feel like you can personalize communication to make it seem less robotic, or less like somebody's talking to a company?
Well, there's just questions that we ask that engage people. And so there's just different types of questions depending on what it is, but there's like connecting type of questions. What was it that drew you to the ad? Just like, what's going on? Just like ways to connect with people authentically. And background questions like, what are you doing now? What got you into that? How long have you been doing that? These problem awareness questions that we teach. It sounds like things are going well for you, but I'm curious, if you could change something about your situation, things are going well, but if you could, what would you change about your situation? Again, if you could, well, I've always wanted to this. How long have you wanted that? So we get into it. So there's a style of communication that pulls out of people things they wouldn't say to, just the general market. So it's enhanced communication, systematically moving somebody's focus and feeling down the line. Because again, people do things for emotional reasons, and every action is preceded by a thought and feeling. So you can get really clear in your messaging the thoughts and feelings you want people to have about themselves, about you, about your brand, about the market, about the economy. And one of those feelings has to be certainty in you, or uncertainty in what they're doing, which is going to pull people towards you.
Mm.
And so we can create all that. So I don't know if that answers your question
Why do you
specifically.
why do you do what you do? Why are you doing this?
For me, I'm an entertainer. I wanted to be an actor, and I was just really lost in my life. And I remember reading that quote by Martin Luther King that really freaked me out. He says, "If a man has not found a purpose in his life that he would die for, then he is not fit to live." And I remember thinking, I fought no great war. I'm not like saving the whales. I've got like none of this stuff. Like, why am I even here? And I fortunately connected with Tony, and I kind of borrowed his mission. And like I said, I just wanted to help people, but I didn't know how, and I didn't know like what my own voice was. And I had times where I made money, wasn't happy, and I just was like, man, none of this really feels good. But the more I got into just helping people and then helping businesses, the better I felt. And having so much success for Tony, all these other companies, especially in this emerging self-development space, marketers, salespeople have started saying like, well, you've had so much success there. Like, what did you do? I was like, it's easy. It's just this and this and this. And it's like, they're like, you're probably already doing this. They're like, no. And all these people started saying, man, this is like completely helped me out. I got two kids in my program, both 21 years old, making over 200K a month right now. And the money sounds good, but they're literally supporting their parents.
Mm.
A friend of mine is actually he's retired his mom off the money that he made from me teaching him what to say in Messenger and on a phone call. And it's like, cool. I've never been overly money focused. And, I won't go into my whole story, but we grew up like super poor. I think I got up in a wheelchair when I was like 2. We had just like horrible life and pretty much out on the street by the time I was like 15. And my mom took almost our last dollar, went to the store, bought a lottery ticket, won 7 million bucks. And I saw what money did for us. And so again, I won't share with you the whole story. It's a long thing, but I got to go to school. I got to meet people. I changed my peer group. I met people that believed in me. I met this girl that works in the White House for Clinton, not Monica Lewinsky. This other girl that was really successful, and she saw things in me, and it was her belief in me that made me want to be more. And I remember thinking to myself, it's like, man, someday the way that she, like, if a bum tells you on the street that you like, oh, you're amazing, like, whatever, get out of here. Or even your parents tell you, because law of familiarity, like, whatever, you say that to me all the time. But somebody that was so accomplished, like for you, I don't know who it is for you, but for me, like Tony Robbins, or say like, who could be a president of the United States, could be Trump or Barack Obama, like who you really respect. If that person said to you, like, you're amazing, you can do it would change your life. If that was the person you respect most in the world, not in your family, they're not obligated to say that. And so many people said that to me because I was in the right environment. Money allowed me to be there. And those people said that to me, and it changed the way I saw myself. And my thought was back then, like, someday I want to be enough. I want to be successful enough. I want to be powerful enough, not in how much money I make, or, this or that, or how I look, or just anything. I want, when I say that to somebody, I want it to mean something. I want to be able to change somebody's life for the better with my words. But I need to be able to give that from a place of success. And success to me means owning myself and being able to shift the situation. It means being able to lead in my life. And so I want to be able to give people the gift that was given to me. And that's all been done with the power of words, things that people said to me that meant something, that shifted me emotionally, where I felt touched, moved, and inspired to do and be more with this gift that I have called my life. And so to pay it forward and to pay it back, I should say, in my life is really the drive beyond that. And it's like my friend Brad says, you're only one conversation away. Like there's the Russell Brunson thing, like you're only one funnel away. But it's like one conversation with a person can shift their life, or 8 conversations. But everything that comes into your life that's good or bad will usually happen through the communication with another human being. And so, or something happens, an external event that shifts how we communicate with ourselves. We have some stressful thing, this problem happened. And so I really think that a lot of the challenges in the world come down to communication, and powerfully influential conversation with a servant's heart
Mm.
and mind and words can shift the world. And, despite somebody's political beliefs about, could be Brazil or America, whatever, everybody's so polarized these days. But people, it's not about blaming this person or that person. It's like, if you don't like something, you're being called to change it, not with your bitching and complaining, but with your responsible outcome focused on what's on your heart, not shaming people or saying this is wrong or right. Again, there's what's right and what's wrong, but there's what works and what doesn't work. If something doesn't work for you, change it. And the
Mm.
way you change it is communicating with people and yourself, and for the emotion. If you're frustrated and angry and victim and bitching and complaining, that's the energy you put out there. And that just, you get more of it.
I love what you're saying. It's the lighthouse versus the tugboat theory, right? Do you wanna
Yeah.
jump off into the ocean and try to save everybody, get beat up, get torn up, do all that stuff, or you just want to be the example? My faith is massive to me, and the Bible teaches us to be a light. And I always say it doesn't teach us to use our light and shine it on other people's problems and
Mhm.
other people's shortcomings and other people's, so on and so forth. It teaches us to be a light. And
Yeah.
everything that you're saying right now is just, it's so empowering when you realize that, you know, I found out that I was enough, fortunately, after I had lost everything. I didn't figure it out any other way other than I'd made a ton of money, and um, I ended up losing it all, going
Yeah.
bankrupt, and losing the relationships, losing the family. I mean, just everything around me had crumbled.
Right.
And I figured it out, at that point. And that's where, faith really steps in and is a massive part of my life. And uh, I agree with what you're saying. I guess is a roundabout way of saying, like, I think that everything that you're saying here is massive. And some people, I think, will understand how important it is to the sales process. based on what we've read about here. And some people might still be scratching their heads and might still have some questions. But I think this is a great place to wrap up. I want to respect your time. If somebody did have more questions, they wanted to get more, they wanted to interact with you more, what would be the best way for them to do that?
I got this like lead magnet thing. It's basically it's Wilde with an E, WILDE, influence.com/free book. And then so these language patterns, the questions, about 18 different types of questions will move people. They can get it for free. It's like 48 pages, a lot of pictures. So it's like a 15, 20-minute read. They can get a lot of that. I know people in our space that close like $20,000, $30,000 sales. They just have it sitting on their desktop, reading it and closing the sale. So it's really good how to connect, engage, and there's examples in there. So that'd be good. And then if at the end of it, they can actually book time with either me or somebody on my team to talk about it. And I've got courses and things like that. People are interested, and they're not really expensive. But yeah, that's our jam.
Awesome, man. I really appreciate you taking some time. I know you're a busy guy. A lot of value shared here today. So I really appreciate the opportunity. And guys, if you're listening to this, we'll make sure that we link that up in the show notes. But again, Eli, man, thank you so much for dropping by. Definitely meant a lot to have you here. And I hope that everybody, really picked up as much as they could. So thank you. Guys, thank you so much for continuing to listen to the Marketing Genius podcast. Continue to tune in on our website, rate us on iTunes and Google Play. I will see you guys on the next episode. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Marketing Genius podcast. Please make sure you remember to rate us on iTunes and Google Play so we can continue to bring you interviews of some of the most influential people in real estate to help you grow your business.